Just us. Yep.
That
Okay.
one's gonna go really fast.
I gotta say. Yeah, maybe.
When I was reading that, I was like, do you think you'll be home like early tonight? I was like, last time I said that, I was home very late, so I'm not going to comment.
Yeah, you never say that.
I'm honest.
Okay, so I'd like to call the Town of Rochester Town Board August 8th workshop meeting to order. Let's stand for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Kate, could you do the roll call?
Councilwoman Ciardi? Here. Councilman Coleman?
Here.
Councilwoman Giles absent. Councilwoman Sneezup is absent. Supervisor Allen.
Here. Okay, so our first agenda item is acceptance of the agenda. I'll make a motion to accept the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay, so the first we tabled some of our business for tonight. So the supervisor's financial report. In your folders, I have the budget versus actual for highway and general fund. I supplied you with June and July because I couldn't remember if I gave you guys June and June. So that's why you have two. So you can see where we're at for expenditures, revenue, and our overall how we are with the budget. So for the July financials, so these numbers are funny because we did the interfund transfer. So the general fund revenue was $110,513.50. And the highway fund was $317,000. Uh-oh. All right, I'm just gonna read it as I say it, but I don't think it's right. $513.50. I pasted those in. Okay. The total expenditures for July of 2024 for general fund is $480,251.92. So that includes that interdepartmental loan. The highway fund, $168,391.78. Street lighting fund, $293.28. Capital and ambulance funds are zero, and escrow is $2,580.32. Kate, do you the town clerk tax collector report?
So for tax collection, I'm still waiting on a couple refund checks to escrow companies to clear out before I can close out 2024 taxes. There's 2 checks I have outstanding. I have contacted the companies to see what's going on with that. So I haven't been able to close out tax collection yet but I have settled up with the county. So everything's good. It's just about our banking clearing out. For the month of July, $59,803.01 was collected in the monthly. And in DocuWare, we are in the process now of creating the digital file cabinets for the assessor's office and for the planning and zoning office. So we're getting that started this week. And I have a liquor license that was filed from Ravenwood Farms, and a resignation was received from Cindy Landing Graham from the planning board.
Thank
That's all I
you.
have.
Thanks. So for the highway report, oh my goodness, there was one thing that we said that I should share. Oh, that the CHIPS purchases invoices were submitted. So everything that was done that we're eligible for has been submitted, and we are expecting that reimbursement mid-September for it's over $100,000 this year for that. Department updates, liaison reports. Renee, do you want to start?
Sure. I shared with you, Kate, you can have my copy. A letter from the Ag Advisory Committee. They met, June 26th at Heirloom Farm. They came to a consensus that they wrote a letter as a request to use money from the budget that they were given, for signs for Right to Farm. So, the letter, do you want to go back?
Oh, however you want to do it. We can just, I can circulate that to the board.
Okay.
But yeah,
Okay. All right. So basically they are asking for, I think it's 30 by 30 Right to Farm community road signs to be placed around, with the existing Welcome to a Town of Rochester signs. So the cost of hardware would be less, $156 a piece plus installation, and I think it was 6 that they wanted. And then they also would like the town to consider adding language about right to farm laws in the community preservation fund proposal. And they are in the process of drafting a letter about that as well.
okay, great. Does that letter include like where they want the signs, or do they want us to have those made by our regular sign?
It's requesting to access the budget to purchase 6 30 by 30 right to farm community road signs at the cost of $156 a piece plus installation, be placed under the 6 existing Welcome to the Town of Rochester.
So
So
if
Jessica actually, because when Renee had reached out about this a few months ago, Jessica was able to reach out to the company that does the signs for highway,
yeah.
and they're the ones that gave the samples.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. All they have to do, someone just needs to send my office what they want to order,
Okay.
and we'll order it because
Okay.
it's that the funds are budgeted, so we can just make the purchase
Okay.
as they would like us to make it. But
Yeah,
I'm also happy to reach out, or
Okay.
if we already have all of that, then we can just.
I will confirm with them, but they had chosen one out of the 2. So I'll confirm and send it to you.
Great. Would you like to go next, or would you like me to go next?
I guess so.
Okay.
It's not a lot in the parks, although we did have the ribbon cutting for the section or the redone section of the rail trail. Very well attended. We had some of the rec department there, which was nice to see, and a lot of people, and gave a great speech. There were a lot of great speeches, and it was really nice to see that many people coming out and supporting the project. Spectrum, I did reach out because we hadn't heard any updates from them. And Mr. Bergio, who is in charge, did get back to me. I'll just read his note here. Said he met with the team today. This was back at the end of July. To talk about the builds. All of their applications are in for the utility partners and moving through. Verizon has estimated completion dates in September and October for their make-ready work, which is the prep for actually being able to do work. They started some of the underground work since that doesn't need full permitting. And one customer is working with Central Hudson on some issues related to some of the poles, which should slow down any of the work. And doesn't see any current issues and thinks that they'll be building this fall or even over. So he was going to reach out to Verizon and see if there's any help needed for their ready work to do that. Constabulary. Everyone should have gotten a copy of the report. So just highlights 17 direct calls for service and their duties in July, 10 neighbor quality of life complaints, 5 resident traffic complaints, towpath, voicemail, Whitfield, Clay Hill, and Crum Road, 2 environmental complaints on Cherrytown and towpath, 0 new building department violations, 0 court cases open, 7 court proceedings remain open, 0 court proceedings closed. ZBA, and I'm remiss here, I think I forgot to take down notes. I think there were 2 major things that happened in the last meeting. One was a reprocessing of an existing application where there was something that had to just be refiled because the noticing was done. And I think there was also an area variance they granted. That's it. Yep.
Oh, we have two.
It's helpful to have back in the room. And then the meeting for this coming month is canceled or something. So EMS and fire. So I did not reached out to both EMS squads. I have not heard anything back from KFAS. We did get quarterly reports from Marbletown. Very good report. I can send this out to the board so that everybody has a copy of it, but just a couple highlights from the quarterly report. So agency responded to 100% of calls in the district during the second quarter, 95% of mutual aid calls during the same period. They currently have 30 staff members on the agency roster. 6 of those are plus or minus 30 hours a week, while the remainder are less than full-time or per diem workers. They currently have 9 board of director seats for their bylaws. 8 of those have been filled in the last several years. And over the past 3 months, 2 of the board members have stepped aside. So they had 2 individuals that have written letters of interest to join the board of directors. And they're optimistic that they both seem like excellent candidates and are likely to be approved at the next meeting, which was actually 85. So I haven't gotten the status update to see if they actually were approved during that meeting. To limit wear and tear and support the growing number of special events that they have been staffing, they are planning to purchase a used ambulance in the next few months. Efforts centered on a rig from a service that had closed. It's nearly identical to the current trucks and has 50K miles, which they believe can be purchased for 50K and some additional equipment costs of roughly 15K. So they'll be adding to capabilities and it'll be roughly 25% of what new ambulance costs them. And then one other note, challenges still exist in particular with ALS, advanced life support response in the region. Not something Marbletown operational team or the board of directors could solve, and so they continue to plan around issues supporting them. The support provided by the 3 towns they serve has enabled Marbletown First Aid Unit to provide extraordinary service and make Willamette Valley a safer place to live and visit. And is that all of mine? All of mine. All right.
So the HPC is continuing to meet twice a month and break up into groups and do updates to the historic reconnaissance survey. So what they're doing is they're taking the list of the old material from 2008 and they're driving around and updating everything, seeing if there's still property homes there, see if there's anything that's been missed. So they've been doing that a couple times a month. And they are in the process of figuring what awards are going to be distributed for the preservation for Heritage Day. And that's about it.
Great. Okay, I guess give some updates. The planning board has a very full agenda on Monday. I've also received a request to have a constable present at planning board meetings. So I was gonna ask that we discuss that on other matters, H on the agenda. We just appointed a new member to the ECC, and they do have a third Thursday talk on creative gardening this month. So that's the third Thursday this month. And they're very busy. There's lots of exciting learning opportunities that they have been corresponding about. I'm very excited that we have a training scheduled for our transfer station staff at the UCRRA on the 21st. So we'll be taking a special field trip with the full staff there. Another board member wanted to attend to get that training. It's just for us, so I can request another slot for that. And the website is scheduled to get finished with content this week. And then I have a call about getting everything published and switched over at the end of this month. So I'm hoping that we will be seeing our new website in action. We have to do a little bit of inter-town coordinating on that and assigning a role. So I need to have a few meetings to make sure that that goes smoothly. And I don't really have anything else to report. I did follow up with the code enforcement office like the board had requested last week, but that'll be part of our first discussion item. So, anything else? Okay, so our first discussion item is the sort of part 2 short-term transient rental cap data review and discussion. We do have the resolution on the agenda, but I thought it was a long and complicated discussion, and I thought it would be good to sort of start with that, decide what we're gonna do, how we wanna word it, and then we will put that resolution, there's a folder for that. Mary Lou,
Yes.
something just came up from a resident right before I came over to the meeting that I wanted to ask you about, which is there an issue with the board setting the cap for new permits to 0?
No.
So even if the law says that the way the law is worded, there's not an issue with that, because I guess 0 is a number.
Correct.
It's a philosophic. Wait, oh, okay. Well, okay, so I guess that's the first thing I wanted to clarify, that like, there's not an issue with us saying there can be none if we are
No
tasked.
issue at all.
Okay.
Especially right now when you're above the 2% that you eventually want to meet.
Right, so that sort of brings me to, well, I'm gonna frame this discussion. So that brings me to a dilemma that I'm having, which is the county, the 2% is based on available housing stock. Our law references the assessment roll, which is not a report of available housing stock. So we're using data, which I have, which is property class data. That is what is available to us. And these are residential property classes. So these property classes have been taken from the, 30 or so property classes that are available on the assessment roll that are residential. And it removes vacant land, parkland, but this is not an analysis of available housing units. It's parcels that have a residential property class. The biggest number of these, the number 210, 2,492, that's a single residential property class. So that's the biggest chunk. When you add all these properties together, it's 3,338. 2% of that is 66.7. So, but the reason why I'm framing that is because I think we were all in agreement that we want to get to that 2% number, but the data that we're using and the way we're using it is purely, I'd say, like anecdotal. It's not a real assessment of available housing units. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I thought that the Housing Advisory Committee did a really incredible job with their comment. And I really took to heart that we need to rework the short-term rental law, but that's not what we're doing here tonight. And one of the things that made me think of is, you know, we do want to think about this 2% cap, but the numbers that we're using are not the same as available housing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you think the available housing number is more or less than that 3,000?
Some of these classes are multifamily. So some of them are 2, 3, 4, but without looking up the specifics of the 3,338 parcels, we wouldn't know.
But those are all parcels, that's everything with a residential.
Though this is parcels with a residential.
But there could be a multifamily that has 10 units in it.
Potentially. We don't have a lot of those in town, but also in order for us to, that number to go up by 1, I think we have to add 50 housing units in town. So there were some comments from people of like, why hasn't this number changed in 4 years? Well, it's because there hadn't been that many new units built in town. So we're not gonna see this, you're not gonna see a fluctuation in 2% of the available housing stock change until like a big change happens in housing stock. The reason why I'm bringing this up, and this is up to the board, but I have, after speaking with the code enforcement office and thinking about it, I'm of the mind that for this year and this year only maybe, but you know, we're only making a decision for a year, that we set the cap to 0 new non-owner occupied permits, make it clear in the resolution that all permits that are up for renewal are not subject to that cap and will be able to renew within the window. And then we look at the law so that it's really clear what we're basing our data and our decision on. The reason why I'm saying that is because we are using this 66 number, but it's sort of in between things, if that makes sense. Does what I'm saying make sense?
Yes. Can you elaborate more on your in-between?
Well, we want to follow the guidance of the county. When we wrote the law, we referenced the assessment role, which is like property classes and assessed value, not available housing stock, which is what the county's recommendation is 2% of available housing stock. It's possible that the number could be 69 or so. I'm just saying, we don't really know what 2% is right now with what we've been looking at.
So since it's a county guideline, there's a way that we can find out, like there's a process to finding out?
Yeah, I think there is. It's just this was something that I actually realized this afternoon when I was like looking at the numbers, and then I got a spreadsheet version of the assessment roll, which was not publicly available. I mean, I think it is publicly available, but I got a spreadsheet format so that I could filter. And as I was going through, I was like, oh, this data doesn't tell you specifics. I can't assign a housing unit number to any of these lines of data. We could look them up. We could probably have someone look that up for us, but I don't want to say this 66 number is anecdotal, because it's not anecdotal, but it's like, I don't know. Do you know the word I'm thinking of?
No.
It's like a stand-in. So to say, I just don't want to, I guess, to me, it's a little misleading to use this number as 2% of available housing stock when it's 2% of available residentially properties.
Is it not fair to
So-
say that it would only go up?
No, that's not fair to say. In fact, we've added 17, I haven't done the analysis, Councilwoman Smith did. We've added 17 new single-family residential property classes, but we lost multifamily. So the number actually is like, kind of like balancing itself out.
So multifamilies were can,
Well, I don't know. We're just
Converted?
basing it on this.
yeah, that makes sense.
What were you gonna say, Mary Lou?
Actually, Michael asked my question.
Oh.
We
Um,
tend to think alike, Michael and I.
And the second reason why I'm advocating for the 0 and is just in talking with the code enforcement office about communicating the law, communicating the cap, and then sort of the promise of false hope, which I think we should be careful of. I understand setting the valve because I think that was my idea last year, so I understand it, and I think that it's a little bit more like there's a chance that that there could be a new permit or two available. But the way applications would have to come in, there's a fee collected with them, and then we would have to like refund the fees, keep a waiting list, process all active permits, and then communicate to however many people apply at the end, most likely that they will not be getting a permit for the year. So just in terms of like work that creates, because of the 3-month window, it just creates a lot of administrative work. And being able to say there's 0 new permits and then committing to doing a really good job communicating to those 18 operators that are up for renewal that they can, and then everyone else, we can have a waiting list for people that we can use as a communication tool if this ever changes, or, but, so that's kind of where I was at, just based on staff feedback. And when I realized that this kind of 66 number is like based on almost the right thing, but not quite the right thing.
So the lowest we would drop is 48. Right.
What? We have 56 that are not up for renewal.
Oh, it should be 74. There's 74 there.
Mhm. So there's
Lowest we would
18.
drop is 56.
If 18 active permit holders decided not to renew, then yes, that is what could happen. And then we would look at it when we're looking at everything.
I think it's fine. I hadn't considered the drag on maintaining a wait list, notifying people, and those people responding. So that's a good point I hadn't considered. I think it would be nice if we make sure we notify the 18 people.
Mhm.
So if we think that that's something we can do, then I think setting it at 0 and committing to looking at the law and fixing these issues that we talked about makes sense to me.
Yeah, because I almost worry too that if you do a wait list, it's gonna create a little bit of chaos and anger, and accusation of like, how do we know that person is first? But primarily, I agree that we should set it at 0, reword the law, get that right, and then move forward, and then have the option to play around with it a little bit more.
Okay. When we do the resolution, I think it'll be important to say that the cap for new permits is 0. And then I'll look it up on the side, but I just want to quote the law to make sure it's clear in the resolution that any compliant permit holder that's up for renewal is not subject to the cap. And I also think it might be helpful, I know it's overkill, but it might be helpful to just state in this resolution that owner occupied units are never subject to the cap.
I think it's helpful. And I also think we should definitely send a letter to all 56.
Everybody.
Yeah, just to let them know, just to inform them, because again, there's a lot of misinformation or rumors and just the 18 people get the letter, then you're gonna have 56 people wondering. what
Yeah,
their
that's a good
status
point.
is.
That's a good point. I'll make a note. Okay. Anything else about that? Okay. So
You need a motion for the resolution, or?
we'll do it I have it on the agenda, so we'll do discussion first and then resolutions. I know that sucks for you.
That's okay. It's fine.
It's broke. Okay, Mary Lou, I didn't have time to read your memo in full for the scenic road process. Do you want to summarize that for us?
Sure. Basically, you guys have the power to turn a two-way road into a one-way road under New York State Vehicle and Traffic Law. The way you do that is not by local law, but by order, rule, regulation, or ordinance. An order would be an emergency situation when you just say executive order for the next 5 days, this is one way. So you do it by rule, regulation, or ordinance. Really, all of them follow the same process, which is very close to the local law process. Where if you determine that you want to make a one-way road, we write a law, a council person places it on the table at a regular special meeting. If the town board wants to move forward, you set a public hearing. Kate has notice provisions she has to do. And then after the public hearing, you can determine, after you close the public hearing, determine whether or not you want to pass that. I'd say just do it as an ordinance. Kate, I don't remember in the last, and I know you haven't been around since 91, but I don't remember ever doing anything as a rule, regulation, or ordinance in the past. So I don't know if you have like a book of ordinances or anything, but we could make it an ordinance and you can start a book. And this would be ordinance 1 of this year. This is not required, but the Cornell, what are they called? The Local Roads Program, which is like an advisory thing from Cornell University. And I'm sure Jeff talks to them frequently, but they give advice on highway matters to town boards and to highway departments. They recommend that you might want to get an engineer involved when determining if you want to do this, but it is not required. This isn't like a tiny little road or anything. Up to you whether you want to do that. It can be the county highway engineer if they are available and have the time to it, or it can be an engineer you hire yourself. It almost seems in the things I've been reading, the biggest thing you need them for is sign placement. So up to you whether you want to consult with an engineer. And if you want to make it one way.
Yeah. Thanks, Mary Lou.
You're welcome.
So basically we would, similar, it's not a local law, but similar process.
Yes, very similar. Okay. The real big difference is that we don't file it with the Secretary of State, but after it's passed, we publish an abstract in the papers, and then everything gets filed in Kate's office.
Okay, great. So what I want to propose, and I'm actually, the thing you said about the engineer is a great segue, Mary Lou.
Okay.
Because the board, I know so the granary project site plan was approved last month, and the board is already receiving correspondence about that project. It's one of the reasons why I put this on the agenda is because I'm thinking a lot about the board discussion that we had during the EEO process about the traffic. And when we were doing seeker and when we were doing the EEO, we asked Peak Engineering to assess whether or not we needed to do a full traffic study or require a full traffic study from that project. And they did a little bit of an analysis and said, no, you don't need to do a full traffic study, but they sort of like pointed to the main-ish parts of concern. Now that the approval has happened, I'm thinking about all the things that we discussed that the applicant would not have been responsible for doing when we discussed that project as a board. That would be things that would be sort of either done by action of the town board or initiated by the town board if it's a county. So making scenic one way, creating a three-way stop at Granite and Main Street. And we also were discussing, signage, sidewalks, sort of wayfaring type stuff. And the more I've been thinking about this, the more I've been thinking that we should have like a community meeting style where it's a input gathering session of people who live here, who will be impacted by not only a new project, but I'm thinking about they'll be impacted by the changes. So I don't want to make scenic one way and install a three-way stop sign and then come to find out that's going to make all these issues. I think I'd like to think about what the concerns are of the community here with regard to the traffic patterns, and then think about what we need to do, what types of professional services we might need to go to try to help us make decisions about what we should do in response and in preparation.
So you would do a stop sign, Granite coming onto Main Street, and then in front of the post office, and then in front of like where the depot is, the one, yeah, just living here and driving through the post office is always such a cluster.
I know.
Like having a stop sign there is really gonna.
I know, I've been thinking about that too now that I work here.
Right.
But the issue is it's a 63, well, I actually don't know what the final approval is, 60 and some change parking lot. And the entrance and exit is also gonna be right there. And there was like no other place for it to go. So I think, I don't know, I think it'd be good to try to, there might be some other solutions. We also wanted to have crosswalks put in, but the county won't put crosswalks in apparently. But I'm like, there's crosswalks in Rosendale, maybe we can talk to them. But I think maybe starting with conversations is kind of how I wanted to approach this.
When's the last time they said it?
I don't know. I think
It wasn't like.
it was stated at one of our meetings. I don't know that we had a representative from the county come and say.
It was, when we had a gateway meeting for the EEO and the county was there. I know that at that gateway meeting, they said they wouldn't do it.
So yeah, that was in 2021.
I'm not sure. It was like, I think like when, they were first considering applying, and I don't know how far back that
Yeah, I
goes.
think that was fall of 2021.
Was it? I think it was before I was on the board.
Yeah.
When did I go?
2022.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, because it might have been December. It was like right before.
Yeah, I think it was fall of 2021.
Would, being that the granary, the plan was accepted by the planning board, would that be enough encouragement for them to change their mind, to see what's going in the area?
You mean the county?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think I wanted to start. I thought it would be good just because there are so many people who, this is like one of our denser areas. We've had a lot of participation from people that live here. And I think I think initially I was like, let's make scenic one way. And then I had a couple conversations where I was like, yeah, maybe we should see if we can get, people together in a room and sort of talk through some of the things that we're thinking and hear about that. It was an idea that I had because I feel like there's a conversation that needs to be had.
I think that's important to have open communication for sure.
And then based on that, I think that's when we would want to talk to an engineer or an expert and then also the county and see what's possible.
Would we want to talk to the engineer first to be able to show what we're thinking and get their input, the community's input? You know what I mean? Like have the engineer come and say, this is what you should do, and then get the community's input on how. Instead of waiting and having an information session and getting their information, we should know what we're even allowed to do structure-wise. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if there's a way to have that all happen at once. Together.
I looked it up. The Gateway meeting was in May 2022.
Oh, okay. You were on the board.
Yeah, I wanted to go, but there was a reason I couldn't go.
Probably a forum.
Yeah, I think it might have been fun. Yeah, to me, it's tough to have that conversation before you actually see what's gonna happen. I mean, it might not be an issue, it might be a huge issue, it might be the opposite issue of what we're thinking. So I don't know if like having that conversation with the community, because there's gonna be a lot of speculation about this is gonna happen, that's gonna happen, and until it actually is in operation, it's tough to know. Because it made sense to me, it's like, well, yeah, you dump all that traffic out and it goes towards, 209 on Scenic, and they hit that light there, that could create a huge snarl, but I don't know, maybe that's not gonna be an issue. So I think we should definitely solicit feedback on that. I just don't know if it makes sense to do it preemptively until we know what's gonna happen.
I mean, I don't know, I know that during certain times of the day, there already are issues like with trucks parking. I mean, they shouldn't, but there's like delivery trucks that park on Main Street. Traffic backs up at that light past Scenic already. The Scenic has been a problem for a long time. So, but I think it was that idea of like, oh, if we're gonna be pouring more traffic, is making Scenic one way gonna make it better or is it gonna make it worse? I think without more traffic, it probably makes it better, but if there's gonna be a lot more traffic, it's probably gonna make it worse. On Main Street, I mean, and if there's a stop sign, I think I'm just. Part of it too is if there are a lot of concerns, is there a way that we can try to communicate
Route
that?
traffic down Granite? Route traffic down Granite?
I was wondering that if you could make it like you can't turn right out of the parking lot. You wanna turn right.
It still puts you on Main Street though.
I probably have my left and right wrong. I don't know what the parking lot could be like. but
Oh,
say-
it's
say-
gonna.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
it's
gonna be
gonna,
on-
sorry,
okay.
I keep saying
Okay.
Main Street, but towpath. Yeah.
Okay.
Towards Granite.
I think that was close.
Yeah,
Then
that's
you
the
could come up
proposal.
209 and use it to bypass Main Street.
Unless traffic is. No, always space. I don't know, that road is well traveled as it is, it's a busy spot.
Yeah, I think I'm concerned. I don't know when the project is gonna be completed. I think I'm just concerned that if we don't start thinking about the changing patterns. I just don't want to be behind it. I don't want to be reacting, I guess is how I'm feeling.
Yeah, well, if there's a traffic jam, fire district needs to get out or something.
Yeah, I
It's not
know.
too late.
It's totally too late.
Could we, because I respect both, that you want to be ahead of it, so can we put the plan in, meet with the engineers, get a plan in place, but also, because you've got so much other stuff going on, you know what I mean? Maybe just do it gradually, give yourself time, because the project is gonna take a lot, it's gonna take a long time, I would assume. And when it starts to become to a point where it's gonna open, and then we can rapidly. Because you're gonna create worry where there's not reason to worry yet, or have people in an uproar, I don't want this here because it's gonna change the traffic and all that.
Yeah. Maybe, so I guess I hear what you're both saying, and I think there's a way to not make a decision about. I think maybe what would be helpful is if I could start seeing what types of like subject matter experts there are. I know there's engineers, but like who try to identify what type, thinking about the budget too for next year, but like what type of consultant would we want on something like this, and kind of start investigating that and talking to a couple just to see, and maybe ask about process. Because part of the reason why I wanted to get the process from Mary Lou now, because I was like, if it's a long process that includes another, then I didn't, but if it's a ordinance, or if it's this type of process, it takes 2-3 months, to do that part. And stop signs, we know, is a resolution. County stop signs are a different story, but those things, it's not things that are gonna take a year for those types of things, so.
There's the Main Street one would be county.
The one here, the one on Towpath would be us.
And the Main Street one would be
Yeah,
county. Did they say they wouldn't do that?
they said that they would, and I think we would put crosswalks in there if we did that, but now that I drive to the post office and I'm like, woo, having stop signs there. Yeah,
Well, I think what you're saying is we could talk to an engineer now, talk to somebody, which I think that makes sense. To start that process.
and maybe have them,
But don't make it a priority, you know what I mean, like,
Yeah.
start the process, but
yeah.
don't kill yourself.
This is the kind of stuff I want to work on though, you guys. Okay, all right, that sounds good. This has been a helpful conversation. Thank you. And, okay, Mary Lou. Did Jaeger
Okay.
subdivision? I
All
know,
right.
it sounds like we need a letter from the planning board.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, there's a number of things. The planning board has given a conditional approval to the DeJager subdivision. But in our law, there are some things, and actually New York state law too, that have to be approved by the town board. They are going to need some to put up bonds for construction and something else. And they also have to have a conservation easement on, which they've given me to review. They're going to set up a homeowners association. We have to review their bylaws on that. I've reviewed all those things. Dave Gordon has also reviewed them for the planning board, but the final yes or no on them is the town board's purview.
The homeowners association, the bylaws?
To make sure that they comply with things that we need them to do on that property. Okay, so I'm good with them. On the conservation easement, they're giving the conservation easement to the homeowners association. And when I read it, I noticed that they did not put a provision in there which would allow the town to enforce the terms of the conservation easement. If the homeowners association did not, and solely in the discretion of the town whether to do that, we wouldn't be required to. So I talked to their attorney about it, and he said that he had those in there originally, and the planning board attorney asked him to take them out. I asked why, and he believed there was a concern by the planning board attorney that if we had that in there, people would go to court and say, we must take up the enforcement. But I've participated in review and writing of, not like 100 of these, but quite a few of these. And we have language which would make it so it is completely within the town's purview whether to try to enforce. And the reason I'd like to see that in this document is because they are giving this to a homeowners association, not a land trust, or some, charitable organization that we know would really keep on them. They're giving it to the homeowners association, which will, very much be run by the homeowners. And if they don't care what people do on these conservation areas, they may not enforce it, or it may just not be the biggest thing on their agenda. So I'd like to keep that option. The applicant's attorney is totally fine to put those provisions in, but I just wanted to see what you folks wanted to do.
Absolutely.
In?
Yes.
Okay. I'll tell them to put them back in. They also have to get some exhibits together on these, and we have to get the bonding together. I told him that, we'd discuss it tonight. Obviously, there wouldn't be any decisions till we had everything finalized, and it would be September before they, before we had the opportunity to vote on these. And he was absolutely fine with that and understood that's just the way the process goes. So I'll work with him. And I'll also talk to him about what form of bond they want to use once we've approved the amount, because we'll have to approve the bond also. They have a couple options. They can get a surety bond. They can give us a cash bond. They can give us a letter of credit. There's different ways it can be done, but I will review the terms in any way they want to do it, and whatever the town board agrees to. But I'll tell them to get started on at least the forms for that right now.
Great.
That's-
Mary Lou, I have a question about the DeJager conservation easement and
Yes.
what's allowed. It in our current subdivision code, it can be the such land may be used for any open space purpose approved by the planning board, including farming, active or passive recreational use. I don't know, the DeJager subdivision was like the longest subdivision.
It was.
I have not followed the whole thing, but I happened to have a conversation with someone involved with the project, and they just asked me, does that mean we can build an agricultural building on that part of the land, or does it mean that no buildings at all could be built on the conservation area?
I am not positive. They might be able to build agricultural. I will look to see how they drew that up. We could say no buildings.
Mm-hmm. Well, or we could say agricultural buildings are fine, but nothing that.
Right, and we did that on one in Wawarsing. We allowed them, it's a big open field of acres and acres that's always been used for farming, and we allowed them to put an agricultural building up.
I was just curious if that was something that, for
Definitely
me, that seems totally fine, as long as it's not going to turn into a agricultural retail sales, because
right, no, can't be anything like that.
It can't be anything like that. But if it was really going to be, if they really wanted agriculture to happen there, it would be important that whoever was farming there might be able to put up, you know, an agricultural building. But if it's, you know, I just wanted to see if that was actually even an option for the way it's all written.
I know I've done it in others, so I
Okay.
think we could do that. Unless we find out the planning board said they couldn't. So
Yeah.
we can check that with Mark.
Okay, I can check that, yeah, okay.
Should be like an ag production purpose structure. or something.
Yeah, the legal definition in New York State building code of an agricultural building is that it cannot be used for work, it's storage and equipment, and staff can't work in there, no one can live in there, so it's like very specific. And I think it encompasses that. But okay,
How many units is this?
it's now, is it 10 now or 12? It used to
Yeah.
be 18.
13 was in my head, but off the top of my head, I don't know.
It's
I have
been
the
a long
maps, but they're in another room.
okay.
That's fine.
So I think what I'll do is I'll send it to you so you can look at it before the September meeting, but first I'll make sure that Neil, the other attorney, and I have worked on the changes in the wording to allow town enforcement. And then I'll get to you at that point rather than giving you something in between.
Okay,
Okay? All right.
that sounds good. So the next discussion item, community center backyard cleanup. I did have a check-in with Councilwoman Smisa today. She wants to propose that, and she and I sort of discussed this a little bit. What we discussed is having a goal of having everything that needs to be removed and cleaned up in the space, plus replacement of the chain link fences happen in this budget year. So I think just trying to see how much it would cost and who could help do that, what she wants to do, it's been very, very challenging to get anywhere that route. So, I think we're gonna start by, I've spoken to our highway superintendent about assisting with that, and I think we're gonna see what's possible by utilizing that assistance and then renting what we need to remove items. And then depending on the timing, kind of see what's possible there first. And what Charlotte was thinking is having that happen in the fall, when it's like less busy for road work and stuff like that, but before the winter. So I offered to start looking into what's possible with doing an internal cleanup. And then I want to replace the chain link fences this year. So we have, it's estimated to be $10,000 to replace the fence at the park, this one, and the one at the transfer station. Is that correct? Yeah. So that we do have to, per our procurement policy, it's not as simple as just like hiring someone to do that. So we should start that. Hopefully we'll have something for that in September. And then the second part of it is Charlotte was asking me, well, okay, so what's the scope? What do we want to do? What playground equipment do we want? And so I said, it's about budget season. It's like, we're literally at budget season. We need to, if we wanted to utilize ARPA funds for any of the park, we would just need to allocate those by the end of the year. So what I suggested is that a really comprehensive plan be created for this back space, including any storage improvements, playground equipment, program needs, patio dream, list, patio dream, reminds me of those little Polly Pockets. That all be, that, the Senior and Youth Recreation Commission made a comment to us that had like a pretty comprehensive list of what they wanted to see, but I think there could be like a plan and then we incorporate that in the budget. It's possible that there could be a grant revenue component, some ARPA funds could be allocated, but if we have that done in September, then we'll be able to consider all of that in October and we'll be able to plan for it in the budget. And that way the cleanup will happen this year. We can replace the fence this year and then we can plan to do the improvements with funding that we will put into next year's budget, but make those decisions in September. So that's sort of what we talked about. So it's going to require, some discussions with community center, staff here and, program staff. And then the other part of it is, thinking about the staff positions and, expanding on like a grounds position that can focus on some of the much needed detail work that was left out of that grounds agreement that we had. I'm just thinking about this back area and how it's overgrown and.
That was a question I had, because I think it was my first board meeting was, we talked about like the trimming and the weed whacking, and you had said that maybe it was just a miscommunication that someone didn't know it needed to be done, but is it that it wasn't in your grounds agreement? And
It's a little, the detail stuff is a little on, so,
is it being taken care of in the meantime?
well, the mowing is happening.
Well, I mean, just with the camp, and not that they're here all the time, they have to go out and do stuff.
Yeah, yes. I think there's lots of areas of improvement and I do think that I think the best way of managing our grounds is to have a staff position that it's their job.
They also need a log, knowing what they're doing throughout the week.
Yeah.
Know that this was weed whack this day. There's nothing like that. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I don't know if it's too soon, but I was thinking when you're talking about cleaning out back, if that could be done before school starts, only because you're gonna have a lot of kids here by mid-September. And I would be a little worried about any kind of construction going on, even if that's not when the kids are here, but the kids are gonna see stuff and they're gonna climb on stuff. And even though you have staff watching, I just think that's gonna be.
You mean having like a dumpster here?
I was just thinking if you had it cleaned up before the after-school program started. Because I could see that being a little bit of a disaster, kids in the back. Right now, we have a month for the most part between kids being here
Yeah.
and after school, if at least the cleanup could be done before that. Yeah,
Yes, I can see if that's possible.
because I know usually they don't start after-school programs like the second or third week, so that still buys us, I think, 5 weeks, maybe 4. That's just when you were talking, that's what I was thinking, rather than waiting to the fall, because that's when the kids are outside the most at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see, I know Charlotte wasn't able to find, she was hitting walls, just trying to find someone who could do it for us. But I can see if Jeff had offered, the last time I spoke, so I can just see if there would be availability for that. If it keeps raining. Okay, so that's the update on that. Microsoft license. You want to take it away, Councilman Coleman?
Yeah, I guess. So, we got a bunch of quotes from Fish for, migrating over to Microsoft 365. Now, they basically provided us like a package price that was per user that included some additional stuff. I don't think we need all of the additional, it's like security and anti-phishing stuff. I think if you buy certain levels of the Microsoft Business licenses, it includes, you know, anti-phishing stuff and everything. Our contract with Fish already covers maintaining those licenses, the mail and all of that stuff. So, and I think Jason, when we spoke to him, confirmed that they would be doing all that stuff. So the two kind of decisions from an expense perspective are, you know, which level of license we would want to get. There's like $12.50 per user per month, and then a $22 per user per month level. And I think if you look at 22 per user includes like additional security stuff and mail filters and all of that stuff, so we don't accidentally get ransomware or any of those other bad things that can happen to get locked out of your stuff. So I think the important thing would be to understand how many actual accounts we would need for that, Erin.
Yeah.
I would estimate like at least 35, but it may be more than that if we start counting some of the other board and stuff. So I think we have to figure that out. And then the other potential big expense was migrating from existing mail servers to the new system was going to be $200 per account. So I asked if they would just give us a fixed cost for that. So they said they would do migration of all the active stuff for $3,000. So I had looked at the Fish contract. I made changes to that effect that I wanted us to look at, but spoke to Mary Lou, and Mary Lou said that we should do this change order to the contract. So Mary Lou, I don't know, do you have any of those documents you referenced where we might have done that?
I do not, usually they're actually prepared by the vendor. But
Okay.
if they don't want to do that and you want me to do it, I could come up with something.
Let me reach out. If we all think this is something that we want to do, I can just reach out and say, you know, this is how many licenses, this is what the board would be interested in seeing, this is how many accounts we would need.
We have 8,000 budgeted for the year.
Well, what's the alternative
If we don't do what?
if we don't move to Microsoft 365? We just stay where we're at, right?
Yeah.
And that's not where we want to be.
Yeah.
So I think that's the alternative.
Yeah, no, I think,
Yeah.
you know, I think it makes sense. And then we have more tools for, like, I know, for example, I was talking with the rec department, you know, they have to save a
No,
file.
it's not a question.
Yeah, so,
Yes.
so it'd be useful to streamline some of the work stuff. So.
I think we have plenty budgeted.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Unless there's like 50 accounts that I'm not.
I think part of this might be, yes, part of this might be taking a look and seeing, we might need to add somewhere, some places and subtract some places. But the license itself, like adding additional accounts is not going to be a problem once we have everything migrated, but there are some accounts that are no longer active.
Yeah.
And I do have the list of accounts, so.
Okay. And it's possible that they may say, hey, if you're just buying like Microsoft licenses, just buy them from Microsoft, in which case we would see if we just need to get a quote from Microsoft. I don't know if they only offer the bundles that they provide. So I'll clarify that. So I'll contact Fish, see if they can do a change order to that effect, Mary Lou, and then if they don't want to, we can look at it.
Okay. Great. And then we should have, once that's all set, we should schedule a meeting with our current administrator so we can talk about how we can work together to get that moved over. Okay. So what do you think the time frame on that is?
I mean, they've been pretty responsive, so I think if I email tomorrow, we can have something as early as next week and discuss it if you want to at the audit meeting. You call a special meeting for it.
Well, we have 3 more meetings this month, so let's not do that.
Do not work meetings.
I know, but it's time. It's time.
So we'll talk, so we can, hopefully by
Okay.
the audit meeting.
Okay, and so I will follow up with the number. Okay. All right. I'm annoyed at myself because, so on communications policy protocol, I'm just pushing this onto the agenda. I'd like to make some headway on it. But I wasn't able to have anything prepared. And I'm beginning to feel like this is something that's not gonna get to be implemented instantly in my in my first 4 months as the town supervisor. But I want to make decisions about how we communicate about what we're doing both as a town board and then how the entire town departments are communicating, what forms of communication we do for certain acts and like the level that we do, because it's, the short-term rental issue was a perfect example, that there was a on October 1st, this gets mailed out and, I think we really need something like that, but unfortunately I didn't really have anything prepared. So I'm going to have to I'll just have to work on that. But I do want to hear from you if there's anything that stands out that you would like to see in a protocol in any category. I mean, there's a lot of categories, but in any category that's come up that I can make sure that I consider when I.
Is this policy geared more towards like intra-office, or is this also like community-based?
This, right, what I am thinking is external communications.
Okay, so there's.
We probably do need an internal communications policy too.
Yeah.
And we can work on that too.
Okay.
But what I was thinking is annual communications. I'm like, we should send out a postcard 4 times a year to residents.
I was thinking like the accordion that you do, something like that. Cause I feel like postcards get overlooked, and especially during election years. I think if you did something that was more like a 2-page newsletter or something that comes like the accordion that's like thick, I don't want to say thick, but you see that it's there and you want to open it and you look forward to it.
Yeah, if we feel like we have the budget for that, great. I think I was thinking we need to have touch points with residents and think about if we were to do something quarterly, what would we want to tell people? I think that's the way I'm thinking is we've done everything really reactionary, but proactively, let's say, yes, let's do a quarterly mailing and make sure that these things get put in a quarterly mailing and that we direct people to the website, or I'm thinking a lot about the transfer station and how I want to do a renewal, have a way of doing a automated mailing for renewals that has, this is how you use the transfer station. These are the rules. I actually kind of want to do contract type thing, so that we can revoke permits really comfortably if we need to. But here's a graphic of how you should be sorting your recycling, and do that annually. It's that sort of thing. I want to put it on a calendar. And then additionally, we've talked about anytime the town board, we've discussed this, but we're doing information sessions. I want to make sure that all information sessions that we do are always streamed on YouTube and like have a way of there being virtual participation. We advertise them in these ways. I think that's all I'm thinking is like, these things should be, we should have a plan. And because the biggest thing for me as a new administrator is we have to make decisions every single time we do something. And it would be great if it was something that everyone agreed on. Okay, this is the best way to do it. So like, we're going to do it that way. Whereas like halfway through, it'll be like, oh, we should have thought of doing it this way. Now there's not time. And if we have a plan, then it'll just be easier to incorporate that every time we're doing something. A lot of it is a little reach for the stars because I know what, capacity I currently have, but to me, this is the most important thing we can do besides keeping the lights on, paying the bills, passing a budget is, yeah.
No, I support that. And we could even like rotate as board members for writing something or with the other like planning boards and zoning board. Like, I'm just making sure I'm on the same page. Is it, you say calendar, so are you saying like you want it to be an annual thing of the transfer station? But would you want to also include like different blurbs, like about the stop sign that you're starting to think about where to put a stop sign, or is that too small? Like, what's the scale here? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, shoot for the stars, the board would have like our sort of agenda and goals for the year. And then we would tell everyone what we were planning on doing, and so it could be as, if we were to do something like that, or even if we could do a smaller mailing that directed people to an online version of a longer newsletter. Like, I'm just thinking about costs, but like to have a lot of this explained and written about and have a place where people could, show people how to use like our website to gather this type of information. Have like the new website has like a town, things that the town board is working on page for, that sort of thing, but also, vacancies on, there's all sorts of things that we just haven't done a great job of getting the word out about a lot of things. So I guess in the beginning, I was like, what I'm talking about is like covers a lot of communication. I think a townwide mailing of what's happening, a quarterly mailing or whatever, that's one thing. And then I think there's like there would be other things that we need to consider. Small things like, how do we make sure that every resident that writes into the town supervisor gets a response? Things like that. It's like, how can we give, make sure that everyone is getting acknowledged when they're contacting us.
So like a quarterly program plan. Like, we could set it on the agenda. Set it on the agenda quarterly for us as a board to put together a program plan for the next 3 or 4 months, right? That gets a little tricky because a lot of times things get pushed. So it could be pretty broad, but I see what you're saying, and I think it's doable. I think if we put it on the agenda, like I said, every 4 months and say what our priorities are. Like we did that one meeting, you set priorities and we talked about how we were gonna do it and make that a communication.
Yeah, I think also for the first year, I think at least for the first year, keeping it simple, like if grievance day is this, here's what grievance day is.
Right.
There's things like that where I'm like, there's all kinds of stuff that people don't know about that we do every year and doesn't get pushed off because it's like.
Right.
What about a robocall system as well? Not just the mailer, but also because those can be done when it's more of a time sensitive. you know, we set the dates in the middle of June for the public hearings with, you know, with the conservation plan, but maybe if a robocall went out.
Yeah.
Because there wouldn't have been enough time for a, you know, a mailing to go out. But I thought of that, and I was actually going to propose that in my budget and this year. I know years ago I looked into like Code 360 or Code Red, it was called.
Yeah,
And that was a robocall throughout the year, and it was unlimited amount of times, and you can use that if the town closes for inclement weather. You can use it to remind people exemptions are due March 1st. I think that is also a really good cost-effective way of communicating throughout the year. And
Yeah.
if you did 2 newsletters a year and then also had that, you know,
Can you do text instead of call?
I'm sure you can.
Yeah.
yeah, there's a text them all.
Yeah.
I put that on the list.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like we talked about mailings, not everybody looks at it, or they set it aside to look at it, but everybody looks at the phone and always look at it. and
Yeah.
have it.
My dream would be to do like a postcard mailing where people could tell us, you know, yes, sign me, you know, and then we would have different, you know, we could, this list gets the mailing, this list gets, but
Well, in 2005 or 6, a newsletter went out to all residents, and it was almost like a survey of what they wanted to see, what did they project Rochester to be?
Yes.
How they preferred to see things, whether it was through email, through phone, and they could put their information on there if they wanted to, or they could remain completely anonymous. That might be another option.
and we can put something like that on the website too. I mean, I think that's another good, not just a segue from what you're saying is, I do think we should have an annual feedback.
Do you get a lot of responses?
It did. I mean, we send out over 4,000 and you get maybe 50 back.
Yeah. I know when the assessors, when they did a postcard mailing for the last time they did they got a 30% return, which was like fantastic.
People wanna know.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it's usually 10, they said, but for some reason, like, yeah.
I also think a more coordinated social media policy.
Yes,
I'd like to see with the new website, you know, I think it'd be great if documents that are public documents are easy. Yes. I would have a hard time getting.
Mhm.
I would see. When we look at the website, if we can, stuff that should be available.
Yeah, I agree. I think especially things like, so many people were FOIL requesting the Housing Advisory Committee comments. It was like, that should just be on the website.
Yes.
And I have spoken to Kate, I'd love to sit down and what are the things that you are processing FOIL requests for that we can just do that? So that you don't have to do that.
How many hours?
Because I'm also sure that for every FOIL request you get for a common document, there's probably 100 other people that are like wondering where that is, because not everybody.
What is the rule if you get a FOIL and it's something that's available? Do you have to just respond and say, you get it here? Is that enough? Or if it's publicly available?
Yeah, I mean, all FOILs are supposed to go through me, and 99% of the time they're electronic anymore, so it's not like the town's losing any money on a FOIL, and it's not costing you any money other than time, search and get that. But our turnaround is usually really quick. I mean, sometimes I can have it to them before the end of the day. Sometimes it's very rare it goes past 5 days. But 90% of my FOILs are building department records or planning records, and that might be really hard to get a lot of that to be accessed.
Yeah. But I also think just a lot of what we get is people calling and asking where to find stuff. And sometimes you just have to walk them through how to find it. And then it also sometimes it's like, oh, that should just be out there. But I think, making more, making more available and also in a very predictable way. Like, I don't want it to be sporadic. I don't want to like, sometimes we put this up and sometimes we don't. Because I want people to get into the habit of expecting exactly where something's gonna be and that will be there.
You know where the planning board agenda is.
So,
Does the planning board put the files up on the website for applications that are before the planning board right now?
I think that there has been a lot of things that have sort of like gone out of habit. I think they were, and I know I think that does happen. We've talked about with the new website, the way the meeting, all the meetings, instead of being in different areas, it will be, this is the agenda and here's a link to all the application packets. And then the video of the meeting will get posted and then the minutes. So everything for each meeting will go in the same place. So I think and that can be done by the department.
Right.
So I think we just have to, one reason why it will be nice to have the licenses is because we can use SharePoint for those files and start creating public facing application packets. Because right now I think they use Google Drive. So. Okay, anything? I know we've gotten a lot of feedback from people, but I'll start working on things. And I like the idea of, I was thinking of print and digital, but the robocall and text them all code red, I think those are all really important things to put in there too. Okay, I had this item, I have one staff position that I'd like to come to the board next month to fund. And that would be in the code enforcement office, so you guys have to fund that position. It exists, but we haven't budgeted for it. So I think I put that on there because I thought we could have a bigger discussion, but I don't think we need to, other than I'm giving you a heads up that I'm gonna do that. So it's a code enforcement position. Would be the municipal code officer. So someone who can write municipal code violations. So not other code, just our code, but that I would want to have fill out staff hours like on the weekend. So I might come to you guys with that at our audit. Break a rule. Other matters. Okay, Mary Lou, I'm throwing this on you.
Uh-oh.
We got a request to have a constables to be present at the planning board meetings. Is that something that I should request a resolution for from the town board?
I don't think you have to, but if you're more comfortable doing that, you can. I know that it's been a long time, but way back in the 90s when we had all the rebirth of the Accord Speedway, we had constables, and then actually after that we ended up having to call the state police and asking them to come to meetings. I think that under your rules you can just do that as supervisor, but if you're more comfortable discussing and having a board resolution, that's fine too.
Yes, I guess I would feel more comfortable discussing that. it was a request from the chair. They have a lot of applications. It's been very busy. They've had a lot of very, very, there's a lot of activity happening the room has been full. So I think it was just a request thinking about how much is going on.
Is it like a temporary request?
What I said is that I would feel comfortable doing it on a month by month basis.
Has there been a concern that they want to have a constable present?
I think it's more a proactive type thing. I mean, on the one hand, I'm like, well, I guess if something, if they ever did need something, it'd be better to have someone here. On the one hand, on the other hand, we haven't had that for a while, and I don't know.
From a staffing standpoint, how does that affect? As far as like their hours, what's gonna take them away from?
No, they don't, it would be if anyone was available, basically. So we don't have any like required hours, so it would have to be like if someone is available. And it's like 6:30 until 11.
Right.
I just know from the past, that's never been very well received, having any law enforcement activities on by the public. Dealt with that many times.
Oh, you have,
In like the early 2000s, yeah.
like at town board meetings?
It's, yeah. And it's not very well received. But also, you have to protect your board too, so if they feel the need, I understand that.
Yeah, it's upsetting.
Board and people who are attending the meetings as well.
Yeah, it's upsetting to me that members of the voluntary board that are trying to do work for the public are concerned about that. People need to think about how they're being received and what messages they're sending their feel that way. If they don't feel comfortable, and the board wants that, then I think we should support them in doing that, but I agree. People need to recognize, the temperature. I've been in meetings when people are angry and upset, and I get it. And you should have every right to speak that, but if people feel intimidated or afraid, like that's a problem. Yeah, we all need to take stock of what that means. So.
I see both that you're worried about the public, but I also think if we do a month-to-month basis, maybe it won't see how it's perceived. But like you said, I think most importantly, if somebody's expressing that they feel like their safety is at risk, then it's kind of our responsibility to make sure that we take the steps that they're being protected. Does that make sense? Like, if somebody's actively expressing that they don't feel safe, and we don't do something about it and something happens, then I don't think we won't forgive ourselves.
Yeah.
So maybe try it for the 1 month and see if it creates more chaos.
Yeah, maybe what we can do is if I don't need a board resolution, I'll have a couple of conversations and just confirm, and if it, feels.
Why don't we do a resolution authorizing you to make that decision?
Okay.
Right.
Sure. Do you have one in mind?
Throw me on the spot.
Yes, you said it.
Town of Rochester Town Board authorizes the supervisor to, Mary Lou, help me out, assign a member of the.
Okay.
Huh?
You're doing
No.
great.
I don't want to.
Oh, yeah. To authorize the presence of a constable at planning board meetings.
Or should we just say at any town meeting?
Yeah, I was thinking that too. You might want to say at any town meeting at request of the chair.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Oh, sorry, second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Okay, the motion carried. Okay, all right, on to resolutions. Yeah. Oh, you just made one. Great segue. Okay. Oh, I didn't mean to close my computer. All right, first resolution, and I tried to cover all bases here. Okay, so this is, I'll make the motion that the Town of Rochester Town Board reorganizes the monthly meeting schedule as of September 2024, so that the meeting scheduled for the first Thursday of the month will be the monthly workshop meeting, and the meeting scheduled for the second Thursday of the month will be the regular business meeting. The actual meeting dates scheduled at the organizational meeting will remain the same. The monthly audit meeting will remain as scheduled. The remaining 2024 monthly workshop meeting dates, I have a extra R, so dates shall be held on the first Thursday of each month at 6:30 p.m. at the Harold Lipton Community Center, 15 Tobacco Road, Accord, New York, 12444, and request the town clerk to post legal notice of such meeting schedule. Exception to this shall be October 24, which will be held on the first Tuesday. September, so the dates are September 5th, 2024, Tuesday, October 1st, 2024, November 7th, 2024, and December 5th, 2024. The remaining 2024 monthly regular business meetings shall be held on the second Thursday of each month at 6:30 p.m. at the Harold Lipton Community Center, 15 Tobacco Road, Accord, New York, 12444, and request the town clerk to post legal notice of such meeting schedule September 12th, 2024, October 10th, 2024, November 14th, 2024, and December 12th, 2024. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
It's a great change.
Do you want to be better? Going back to 2 meetings a month.
We're getting there.
Happy New Year.
We're getting there, Kate. That was my next promise.
So, I'm sorry,
2 success.
it's not the Tuesdays?
That is a holiday, so the way we scheduled, I took this from our organizational meeting and I edited it because, so that Kate could do the notice for it. So the way we schedule it is our meetings happen on the first Thursday, and then there's the exception to that is this, that meeting that would have been on the 3rd, which I think is Rosh Hashanah, is gonna be on Tuesday, October 1st. So that's just how we word it. It's an exception to the first. So that was scheduled, all these meeting dates were scheduled at our organizational meeting, but they were scheduled as a different meeting type. So we're just flip-flopping them.
This is supposed to say Thursday though, right? On the first Thursday? Which will be held on the.
The exception to this shall be October 2024, which shall be held on the first
Oh,
Tuesday.
okay.
I just,
That would be next.
I yoinked that from our organizational meeting and I decided not to edit it.
I have an existing board meeting Tuesday, the first Tuesday. Oh, I hate to miss that one. But that's not, that doesn't have anything to do with this.
Still have time if we want.
Yeah, we could consider rescheduling. Also in October, we're gonna have 4 more meetings. Renee, so you might be happy to miss one meeting. It's our budget October is budget, and so we usually have 4 budget meetings, or that's what we did with Mike. Maybe with me, we'll need to have 10. So, yeah, so there'll be, and we can also reschedule if that's gonna be an issue, but, I just wanted to, know, we talked about it and yes, are you okay with that, with schedule, Michael, or?
Yeah, I haven't changed that.
Right, okay, all right. Any more discussion? All right, so let's call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Okay. We are at the short term. And then, hold on, I'm gonna find the language real quick.
I have some language.
Oh,
Do you want to just try that?
sure,
I don't know if this makes sense.
okay.
Do you want me to read it first, or do you want me to make it first?
You can make the resolution.
Recommended resolution, Town of Rochester Town Board sets the short-term rental cap for new non-owner occupied permits. Do we have to say the year? For the calendar year 2025 at 0. This cap does not apply to renewals for existing permit holders or permit holders designated as owner occupied short-term transit rentals. That do it?
Did you hear that? Oh, I'll second it. I'll second that. I guess.
Does that make sense? Is that,
Yes. I think so. Does that make sense, Mary Lou?
It does. Got everything in there that you discussed earlier.
Um,
I only
Hey.
got to existing, I'll have to listen again.
can
no, you
you,
can't read this.
Oh,
can you read the language again? Because
Town of Rochester Town Board sets the short-term rental cap for non-owner occupied,
for new.
for new non-owner occupied permits. The calendar year 2025 at 0. This cap does not apply to renewals for existing permit holders or permit holders designated as owner occupied short-term transient rentals. Does that make sense though?
Yes.
Now, what I would take out permitted owner occupied, because they can still get new permits. That kind of makes it sound like already permitted.
Yeah.
I would put just or owner occupied. I'm taking one clap back. You only get 2
Okay.
claps now.
All right, I'll allow it.
Can I make one, I'd like to see if we can amend it because the language in the law, it says renewal application, shall never be subject to any cap. So I would like to have that instead of saying existing
This is not included.
renewal, to just say renewal applications are not subject to this cap.
Okay.
And then maybe we could cite this section of the law.
Per
Because it-
section, blah, blah, blah.
It defines what a renewal, that says that if you didn't hold a permit for the prior year, then you are not a renewal applicant, and it just defines it right there.
So should we say, what's the section? Should we say per section, blah, 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 local law, whatever,
Local law 3 of 2021
which section?
S, renewal permits.
Per section S of local law. And what was the
I
rest?
guess we can say renewal permits are not subject to the cap.
Renewal permits are not subject to the cap, and then how do we do the,
Do you want to refer to it as local law or just the section because it's a code section now?
I don't think it is a code section. I don't think it's been,
It might not be in the code, but local law number 3 amended, or whatever it was, amended the code.
oh, sorry, 14026A. Whew,
There you go.
14026A, section S. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, Kate.
So is it to be the town board sets the short-term rental cap for new non-owner occupied permits for the calendar year at 0. This does not apply to renewal permits as per section 14026-A. Are you taking out everything else?
Not doing the owner occupied ones.
I think Mary Lou was just saying, don't say the language you had before it.
Well, just the word permitted take out.
Yeah, just the word permitted. You can say owner occupied permits are not subject.
This cap shall not apply to owner occupied units.
Okay.
Or we could say this cap shall not apply to renewal permits per, and then cite the code, and owner occupied permits.
Or
Or owner occupied.
I'll make that motion as amended. You got all that, Kate?
I'll get it.
Yeah, and you put the year in when you get it back.
Oh, I have it here.
Okay, I will second as amended. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Motion carries. Okay, the next one, I don't even know if I need you guys to authorize this, but we awarded the quote. Oh, no, we didn't award the quote. This is awarding the quote and authorizing me to sign the sales agreement, which I sent to you guys via email. And I have a copy of if you want to see it. So the Town of Rochester Town Board selects ADP to provide the time and attendance services and authorizes the town supervisor to sign the sales agreement between ADP, 1 ADP Boulevard, Roseland, New Jersey, 07068, and the Town of Rochester, 50 Scenic Road, Accord, New York, 12404. Oops. Sorry, I should have filled this in. In the amount. Oh, I sent you guys the wrong one. Hold on. In the amount of $2,353.20.
235
Yeah. In accordance with the terms set forth in the applicable sales order for the following services, ADP, time and attendance. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Okay. That is our last agenda item, so,
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, second.
all right, we're good. All right, that's it.
For specific.
Thanks, Mary Lou.
Okay, guys, have a great night.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Good night.
Night.